All right, welcome into the Garden Report, post-game edition. The Celtics have finally gotten a win in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Woo!
They did it.
On the board.
Down in the series 2-1, and they did it 117-106 in a game they pretty much led wire to wire. This Garden Report is presented by Car Shield. And guys, this was what they needed after the Game 2 meltdown, both on the court and off the court, was about as bad as it gets. This could have gone in a couple different directions, and thankfully they responded, and they did almost right out of the gate, right? Jimmy, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I mean, it took a post-game blowout, 17 meetings, 14 phone calls, but the team is together as one, and this was the product, right? I mean, this is what you see when Celtics play their style of basketball, which is what we don't seem to see for 48 minutes, especially in games 1 and 2. But when they play as a team, and we saw it right off the start, they were moving the ball around, whipping it around. Marcus Smart was getting involved early. Jaylen Brown was getting involved early. Even some give-and-go type plays. I loved what I saw from them. And again, they got out to the big lead. And this time, we didn't have that epic third quarter inevitable blowout that we usually have.
Yeah, there was 45 solid minutes, but it was 3 minutes of a little bit of
we don't talk about those final three.
Yeah, we're going to skip it. This is a short segment. We spent time on the postgame talking about it. We're just going to talk about the win. Josue?
Yeah, big improvement in the third quarter. That's exactly the point where I was going to get to. We knew that whatever happened at the end of game 2, we knew that was going to carry over in a good way in that first quarter, because that wasn't the problem in the first 2 games, right? The Celtics offense looks good. It looked fluid in that first quarter in game 2. It was just, can you sustain that into the third quarter? After halftime, are you going to look like the same Celtics team that we've been seeing the last week or so, where we just don't see the same sort of offense, the same sort of flow? But they were able to do that in the third quarter and then some. Not only were they able to recover from a Heat run, but they did it twice. So with that sort of energy and that kind of focus, because of that, heading into the fourth quarter, they were able to close things out. It was a little dicey at some point to that fourth quarter, but as they say, win's a win, right, guys?
Yeah, and they almost fell on themselves in the second, the third, and the fourth toward the end of it, and then they picked themselves up each time. The fourth came the closest to being the most scary, of course, because they get within 5 with, frankly, around 3 minutes left to go, 2-3 minutes, and that's more than enough time to overcome 5. But the Celtics get it back to 11 in that second quarter. Tyler Hero's killing them, and then they go on a big burst with the best 5 lineup to close the half. And then in the third quarter, all those turnovers are flying, and they rally together and have a great close to that quarter with the Jayson Tatum steal, run out 5-0 run. So every time you felt like it was slipping, they got back up and responded, and everybody was involved. I think that's what you feel best about out of this one, is that Smart has a good game. Kemba, Brown, Tatum, it was all a collective effort.
Yeah, and we're going to get into some of the individual performances as well, but it really was interesting just how they responded, because you didn't know how it was going to go. As the stories after that game 2 meltdown trickled out, it really was, I mean, they said the right things publicly, but it really sounded like it was pretty bad, with Smart going after.
It was bad. It was very, very bad, as Stephen A. would say.
Very, very bad. And you're talking about, that Brad had to have an emergency meeting that night, and then they had to tie it together in a phone call the next day, and they were still mad at each other, and you didn't know how it was going to happen. Here's Jaylen Brown talking a little bit about just how the team responded. And Jaylen, again, was very much at the center of this, because it was he and Marcus, as it turns out, who were really at each other, all had to be separated, and were still kind of beefing to the point that they had to bring them together on a phone call and get them ready for this game. So here's what Jaylen had to say about it.
Just about honing in, focusing. There's some great guys in that locker room. A lot of emotion, a lot of passion, but we're family and we're here for each other at the end of the day. So we exemplified that when we came out together. We stayed together during some tough moments. They made a big run. I think at the end of the second quarter, Tyler Hero made some big plays, but we didn't hang our head. We kept our wheel high and we persevered to win this game. To be honest, I didn't get much sleep the last 48 hours, man. I was so, antsy to get back and play basketball. I don't think the last 2 games exemplify, what this team is about. So I couldn't wait to come out and be the best version of myself and try to add to a win. And I'm glad to be a part of this team and this organization. And I'm proud of how we responded. That it was probably blown out of proportion. Like, we are in a bubble. It's a lot of grown men. It's a lot of passion and emotion going on. But at the end of the day, we're a family. We represent this organization. We represent each other. And, we won't ever let anything come in between that. We got a tremendous opportunity, and we understand that. And nothing's going to stop us from trying to maximize that.
So there you go. Jaylen Brown said it was blown out of proportion. Doesn't really sound like it was. We're going to get into Jaylen's performance. Really, and again, but
Bobby dismissed that
exactly
so quick.
what you
He's
say
like,
when it
nah.
isn't.
Now were items flying? Who knows? But
Right.
that was like the peak.
We take him at his word that at least, for sure, it clearly that they came out unified. Real quick, I just want to tell you about our sponsor again before we get into this, because that is super important. It pays the bills. CarShield. Yes, CarShield, America's #1 auto protection company.
Great company.
Call 800 CAR 6000, mention the code BEAT, or visit carshield.com, use the code BEAT, save 10%. That's carshield.com. Now back to this, guys. Again,
you need a car shield in the locker room when Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown start,
or like Captain America's shield.
Right? Yeah,
Stevens needed everything flying over his head.
Yeah, but Stevens was, oh wow.
Stevens is in the corner. He's just in the corner. Like,
I didn't sign up for this.
This never happened at Butler.
Yeah. They bounced back, and Jaylen was a huge reason why, obviously, in this game. And again, we talked about it on the postgame show after game 2. Get him involved. It was one of the reasons why he seemed, again, one of the reports came out, he was griping a little bit about his touches, and he wasn't getting them. And we were baffled by it after that, in the game 2 postgame. And right away, he was attacking. He was just it was a different guy that we've seen so far in this series. So he's a huge reason why they got out to their lead and they maintained it the whole game.
Huge reason. I mean, we talked right off the bat about bubble Jaylen. I mean, this guy came out gangbusters right out of this, coming out of the pandemic, if you're the NBA, coming into that bubble, he turned into like player 1A, right? I mean, we always talked about Tatum and Kemba being, the guy, but then all of a sudden Jaylen Brown sort of came out of nowhere and was taking on that leadership role. So it was kind of baffling to see game 1. He was completely invisible, along with Smart, to be honest, down the stretch in game 1. And then game 2, similar. So I can see why he would be a little bit frustrated and question, what's going on down the stretch here. He's important to this team. And you see with him tonight, over 20 points, you see the difference. And I think the stat was, Bob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was it 15-1 when he scores 25 or more points?
Yeah, 16-1, I believe.
16-1.
16-1.
Now
I mean,
16-1, yeah.
And there you go.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And we know that he can create his own offense. We know what Jaylen can do, but it was just seeing these guys. What are you going to do down the stretch? I think that's the biggest concern. I mean, obviously this reports what Marcus Smart had to say, or at least what people were saying about him. One part of that report that really surprised me was the fact that he was getting into it with assistant coaches. So then you can kind of get somewhat of a better feel of the story. Maybe he felt a bit targeted. Maybe he felt like, oh, is this the elephant in the room? Is everyone upset that I took that ill-advised 3 at the end of that game? Or is this like a pattern thing? I think that's sort of what we're wrestling with here. Has this happened in the past? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe this is just the first time we're learning about this because it was such an explosion in the locker room that, of course, reporters were there to catch wind of it. Either way, I don't see it as a problem moving forward. And I'm not just saying that because of what happened in game 3. I just think, again, it's more about not necessarily the end result of a win or loss in the game. I think it's more as how are you going to handle that situation? If the game is tied or if someone takes a 3-pointer that not everyone agrees with, is that going to affect the team in a space where they can't move on from that? Or is that player going to check out? I think those are more of the conversations that Brad Stevens and those guys had over the phone or however many times they all got together, the 3 or 4 times before heading into game
Telegram.
At the pool.
Yeah. Again, they're always going to play up the chemistry, but to some degree, this was a side effect of Gordon Hayward coming back, and we're going to get to him. But he brought everybody to a new level with some of the lineups that they could put out there, and I thought Brown in particular was in a much better position to succeed. Starting with defense, it felt like he had 5 steals, he only had 3. But they had him involved in the pick and roll action where he could blow up ball handlers, he could blow up the bigs inside. He was even playing that center position when they went with the 5 best lineup, and he turned that into points with the steals, with the deflections. you don't want him just standing on the side face guarding Duncan Robinson and face guarding Jay Crowder. You want him involved in the central plays where the ball is, and that's what got him going tonight, I felt like, for a large degree.
Yeah, and there's no question you have to mention the effort from Gordon Hayward. The stats aren't gaudy, but certainly his presence, and we'll get deeper into this in another segment, but Hayward's presence made a huge difference just in terms of handling the ball, playmaking ability, just slowing things down, and if you didn't have those stretches, I think it's no coincidence that they didn't have those stretches in this game where things kind of got away from them. And Hayward played, significant minutes for a guy coming back, and he was gassed afterwards, but he was a huge part of this as well. So, and Tatum, Jimmy, you liked him, Bobby less so, but I mean, I thought he played an all-around game. Again, we've got some closing situations here that maybe
that's where it got tricky again.
Got a little tricky.
No, I mean, listen, did he play a complete 48-minute game? No, but I think he was the reason you built the lead. I think it was the biggest reason you built the lead that you had in that, going into that fourth quarter and in that fourth quarter. He's a young player still. Is he the closer that we all think he can be yet? No, he's not that player yet. So I think we criticize him when he screws up, and we will again, but I also think that, he had a near triple-double going into the fourth quarter. So you can't tell me that you didn't give this team exactly what they needed throughout.
Yep. Again, I thought a solid effort.
Yeah.
Sure, you can question a couple of shots late, but again,
I do too. But at the end of the day,
it's a point game, and he played terrific for the majority of it. Right. And you didn't need the closing buckets. We could have lived with some better decisions from the team late. But that was, as Bobby put it in the postgame show, almost every single person had a hand in doing something.
Tice with the fouls, Hayward had turnover.
That allowed
Smart shot.
Brown did the elbow.
Right.
Yeah.
Try as they might, they still won this game.
And Marcus Smart, he had John ready to explode, but he hit 8 straight free throws and sealed the game. So it worked. It wasn't the way they probably should have done it, but it worked.
Right. And again, it's one of those things where it's probably best for Brad to just not mention some of that stuff, hey guys, we did it, just move on,
Don't watch the film. I heard Brad before game 2 saying we shouldn't have watched film. So that's where we're at now.
We don't need the compliment sandwich here where he stuffs in but late in the game, I'd say just let this one go.
Just never mind.
Yeah. All right. So once again, this
4 days at the pool.
Yeah. This segment's brought to you by Car Shield. We're going to have much more coverage on the Celtics on game 3 and throughout the series. So keep it here. Subscribe to our YouTube channel.